Today's video will have stories submitted by you, the viewers, via our subreddit. Be sure to post your very own story, art, and more for the possibility of it showing up in a future video. Now for this first story, this is a DM horror story, so it's not your typical cringy affair. Let's throw a log into the volcano. So I'm not the most experienced DM, and my players are not super experienced either, but most of them are really into researching D&D stuff, so they are surely more familiar with the content than I am. After a couple of one-shots to get me more confident in my DMing, we started a level 3 campaign. The party was tasked with protecting a gnome archaeologist that was looking for an idol in the jungle, near a volcano. The idol was supposed to contain the spirit of the volcano. My idea was that once they get near the top of the volcano, but not so close that they'd be actually able to do anything, the big bad evil guy, a rival archaeologist, would appear at the top, taunting them with the idol in hand before magically escaping. I was planning on having the campaign be a quest looking for this big bad evil guy, beat him up before he could use the idol to wake up an ancient fire elemental within, or defeat the fire elemental if they failed to stop the ritual. Take the idol back to the volcano and toss it in Lord of the Rings style. The party knew about the idol. The good archaeologist told them all about it, so they knew what was at stake. That was my first mistake. I was beginning the taunting cinematic, with Big Bad Evil Guy holding the idol as if it was Simba, when one player interrupts. How far is this guy? 500 feet away. I take a shot at it with my longbow. Okay, roll initiative. They all roll initiative. He comes out on top. I shoot then. Roll with disadvantage. I got sharpshooter. It removes the long distance disadvantage. So after some reading on my part, running some numbers, I decide to allow it, thinking it would be a difficult shot, and even if he critted, I can give an on-the-spot HP boost to my guy to offset it. I would reward the party if they actually wounded him, so it was all good on my end. Okay, roll with the -5 for the sharp. No, I don't want the extra damage. 23! Let's see here, plus mage armor, plus shield, really? That hits. Roll damage. Also, I use disarming strike. I quickly dive into Disarming Strike's text and start to panic. Oh, a strength save. That's okay. I ponder briefly and greedily decide to fudge the roll if need be. I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do, but at the time I thought it'd be better to protect the campaign as planned. Alright, so your arrow actually pierces his forearm and you see him wince in pain as he tries not to lose grip of the idol. I'll roll a strength save. What's the DC? No you don't. I use Portent to force his die. He had both Portent rolls for the day, and he shows me the 1. A 1! The table cheers. I asked for a minute. I couldn't tell them that the big bad evil guy made the save regardless. I considered briefly saying that the idol landed safely at the big bad evil guy's feet, but it felt like cheating them out of their moment of triumph. You know what? They earned it. You see the big bad evil guy fumble as the idol flies in the air. The evil archaeologist claws at the air as he desperately tries to catch his prize, but the blinding pain of his wound and the shock makes him lose his footing, and suddenly both idol and man disappear from your sight. After a few seconds of silence, you hear a rumble coming from the volcano. and the sight of a thick cloud of green smoke makes you certain of their final destiny. The evil archaeologist is dead, and the spirit within the idol is now back where it belongs. I then described a short cinematic of the ground rumbling beneath them as they fled the volcano that seemed to be about to erupt, but then it finally goes cold. So now I have to come up with a whole new campaign for my now level 4 party. I have several ideas and I don't want to give them away should they hear this, but I'll surely change the setting. Maybe I'll just run Curse of Strahd. Whatever. Lesson learned, don't expose your idol if you're not willing to lose it. As a DM, you always have to be prepared for the unexpected. Taunting cutscenes are just asking for something to go wrong. Unfortunately, D&D is not like a video game where you can just shut off the player's input. Unless you want to be a railroad conductor. Sometimes it's better to have an NPC describe a situation instead of having the party experience it for themselves if you want to force a certain result. I'm glad that OP resisted the urge to possibly ruin the player's experience at the expense of keeping his original campaign. It's okay. Maybe it can be reused for another group or salvaged by changing a few things around. OP may not know everything, but what I do know is that those players are in good hands. For this next story, the author made my intro for me, so I plan to use it. It's a bit outdated, but it's fine just this once. What happens when a player takes his frustration for their in-game actions out on a DM? Let me describe the situation. So I was running a custom campaign inspired by the lore of Saltmarsh from Ghost of Saltmarsh. It was a quest line that involved the Scarlet Brotherhood. Everyone is level 5, and there were chances they would find out about a trusted NPC being a spy for said group. Little did I know about the drama that was about to unfold. The party goes into the shop dealer, a homebrew shop that sells magical items. They recently got paid 10,000 gold from a merchant for retrieving cargo for them. Each character gets to pick out something decent. A +1 simple weapon goes for about 500 gold pieces, while the martial weapons are around 1k. There were also other things they could buy, but it was mostly the weapons that they were interested in. One of the players, a barbarian, buys 2 items that total up to 2k, but he still wants this one item. He can't afford it, and the shopkeeper isn't willing to bring that item down to half price. I was worried that doing so would break the game. Barbarian tries to convince the owner that he'll pay him once he gets rewarded for his next quest. Shopkeeper refuses, but Barbarian isn't having any of it. He tries intimidating the shopkeeper into handing the weapon over. A party member lightly smacks him and tells him not to act like this. Barbarian still continues his behavior, and after everyone makes their selection, an annoyed dealer tosses the party out. The party is reasonably upset at Barbarian for making a fool of himself. Everyone except Barbarian goes to the bar because they don't want to speak with him for a while. They have a reputation to protect and tell Barbarian to come find them when he stops bullying others. Party drama can be interesting if everyone is in on it, but because this is on Reddit, you know what's going to happen. When the party is gone, Barbarian waits until the shop is closed for the night. He rolls decently on stealth and uses a potion of invisibility to sneak into the shop and get past the guards. During the night, the more expensive stuff is kept in another room. Barbarian moves around undetected, finding the room where it's kept. Barbarian grabs one of the items and sets the alarm off because he didn't search for traps or any devices. Luckily, a window is nearby, so he breaks through it before the guards enter and swarm him. He gets away with the item he's looking for, which would bite him in the butt. Obviously, the party is suspected for stealing from the shopkeeper, and when two characters point out the obvious culprit to the guards, the barbarian in real life flips out and complains about how I'm railroading him and encouraging everyone to bully him. He tells me that he's out and starts grabbing his things, storming out of the building. I told the other players that I would have been reasonable if he stayed. They agreed that Barbarian would have been the #1 suspect in this case. I DM'd Barbarian on Discord and list the reasons he would be discovered. You intimidated the shopkeeper not too long ago and stole the same item that you demanded from him. I wasn't planning on killing you for your actions. This was just to teach you that your actions have consequences. If you poorly plan things out, you're gonna get caught. Unsurprisingly, the barbarian blocked me, and the bad news is that he would drive one of the players up. So unless that person finds another way to come over, we will be down 2 players instead of 1. I did try to talk things out with Barbarian after this whole event, but it resulted in him saying some choice words which made me give up on him. Barbarian was simply being unreasonable. It's important to not have everything you want all the time. Otherwise, what are you working for? Barbarian could have just saw this as another thing to look forward to after his next quest, but instead he pushed things too far. I don't know why he thought that he was going to get away with stealing from the shopkeeper, because everyone would expect any newcomers to be the culprits. OP, on the other hand, did a great job. Keep on doing what you're doing. In this last story, OP was that guy, so this should be interesting. Let's punt a twig into the fire pit. For context, this happened in 2004 and was at the end of the first and only full campaign I played for 3.5. My childhood mates, Green and Newt, were looking for a 3.5 game. A couple of friends were about to leave a recently started campaign because of scheduling issues, so we asked the DM if the 3 of us could join. He was running for a party of 4 and he had 2 players already, but was gracious and accepted to rebalance his plans for 5 PCs. This was a stressing year because life wasn't easy at the time where I lived. There was a huge economic crisis and we were about 20 years old, so it was bad enough with college and work. Also, we were completely irresponsible. Because of this, Newt had to drop out a few months in and was the last time I ever played with him. The campaign was a rather standard fantasy thing with some political intrigue. A lot of lawful good heroics. It was fine. The DM was good and the other 2 players were okay. Fast forward to the end of the campaign. We killed the big bad evil guy and rescued the baby of prophecy that we had to bring back to Good Guy City to win. The penultimate session ended with us close to the finish, but then the big bad evil guy's spirit possessed one of our allies, and he and his men ambushed us. There was a chase and the session ended with a standoff while we were crossing a bridge that spanned a huge chasm. We knew the next session was going to be the last. Now, as I had said, it was a stressful year. I had a bunch of final exams and I was burnt out. Green was the chillest dude I knew at the time, and even he was stressed out. The day before the game, I met with Newt and Green, and we decided to do the most responsible thing we could think of: partying. We partied so hard that at some point we thought about going to a brothel, but luckily we were too broke. The next day we were spent. We showed up at Green's place a little past noon with a killer headache. If we ate some protein, drank a bunch of water, and rested, we would have made it fine to the game. But we didn't. In fact, we kept drinking and smoking instead. When it was almost time, we chugged a huge black pot of coffee. We ended up arriving to the game on time. We probably reeked of party and substance, but at least we were 100% there. At first, then 99, and so on. So the game resumed. The possessed allies group had men on both sides of the bridge, so we were super stuck. Our wizard and Green, our rogue, tried to poke a hole in their numbers so that we could press forward, but it was a tough one. The enemy forces were closing in. I had the baby in my arms, and we were 2 turns away from melee, which would be bad news for the baby. Then my brain, soaked in whiskey, coffee, and smoked out, got a stroke of inspiration. Green, you got AC bonus against attacks of opportunity, right? Yeah, man. Go long. Green dashed across the bridge, getting minimal damage from all the attacks of opportunity triggered, and waited from a safe distance. Wizard had his turn and made great use of an empowered lightning bolt against the enemies behind us. Fighter cleaved through a couple of the soldiers. It was glorious. I punt the baby towards Green. Green burst out laughing. Wizard and Fighter looked at me with hatred. DM was shocked. Are you sure? The baby has 1 hit point. If anything goes wrong. I got this, man. The DM shrugged. Wizard and Fighter tried to protest, and Green was encouraging me. I described how I yelled, "Catch!" took a step forward, let go of the baby, and kicked it in the bum with force. The DM made me roll for something. I picked up my die and rolled it in my cupped hands as I sang, "Fly like an eagle." I let go of the die. Green was cheering. It was low. Like, really low. Wizard and Fighter looked at the DM, shocked. Okay, the baby flies high, but his trajectory is clearly off. And Green, I'll let you roll 2 reflex saves to see if you dive to catch it. If you try this, you'll likely fall with the baby down the chasm. The first roll is to catch the baby with 1 hand. The other is to grab something to prevent your fall. You got this, Green. I am the tiger. Can I cast haste or something to buff him? No, you haven't readied an action. Green rolled. Low, high. You dive forward in an attempt to catch it, but as you are also preoccupied with getting a hold of something to avoid your own fall, you don't catch the baby and you see it fall down the chasm to its inevitable death. Green and I burst out laughing. Fighter gets up, frustrated, and leaves the room. Wizard argues that we are clearly under the influence and that this whole thing should be retconned. DM says that there is no way to schedule another session since he's got finals coming. Fighter comes back a few minutes later, sits down, and just glares at us. DM wraps up the story in a bittersweet tone. The big bad evil guy's spirit left the ally's body and, after seeing what he's done, winds up jumping off the cliff as well. The rest of the enemy's forces fled. We returned to the city and was regarded as heroes despite losing the baby. but we never felt as such, and the party disbanded shortly after. Once the game was over, Wizard and Fighter got in our faces for ruining the game. We pushed back, not because we thought we were right, but because if we didn't, they might try to start a fist fight. DM just kicked us all out. We never saw them again. The friends that we replaced at the beginning of the campaign were extremely angry at us. Green and I remained best friends for a few years, but we never played again. We drifted apart shortly after. In case you were wondering why Newt left the campaign early, it was because he got a girl pregnant and was super stressed. The girl wasn't his girlfriend, and eventually his girlfriend found out, and it was a nuclear disaster. The pregnant girl ended up losing the pregnancy because of a hereditary condition of hers. In that time, we saw less and less of Newt, and a few months after the campaign ended, he quit college, found a job in another city, and left. I took the chances to get myself together. I quit college as well, kept working, and generally moved on. A couple of years ago, I took up 5e, and it was a blast, and that was after like a 15-year plus hiatus. So yeah, for a single session, I was that guy, and ruined a semester's worth of playing. It really stinks that such a great campaign could be destroyed by one bad session at the end. If this session would have happened earlier, then it wouldn't have been as such a big deal. It was just a perfect storm. We could get mad at OP, but we all make mistakes, including especially poor ones, like pulling all-nighters for a final exam. I would like to think that OP could have learned a lesson from this experience, which could explain the 15-year hiatus. Just don't drop the baby during your next campaign. Before we go, let's recognize some Horde board comments. These are the few dedicated individuals who actually decide to comment based on the message given in each video. Lately, Erica B has been on a roll, so here's a special shout out. Thanks to all those who contributed to the subreddit to make this video possible. Feel free to add more, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers!